Great, and we need to vote to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Any questions on that, or can someone propose that we accept them? Anita, thank you. Is this, can everyone hear me? Yes. All those in favour of accepting the last minutes?
It's a majority. Okay, so it's a majority.
Yep, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move swiftly on to agenda item number 2 then, which is for decision, a vote of no confidence in Frome MP David Warburton. And for this, I'm going to hand over to Fiona Barrows. Thank you, Fiona.
So it's green. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, Councillor no confidence in the current MP for Somerton and Frome, David Warburton. I want to start by saying that this is a fully independent council. All 17 of us believe that there is no place for party politics in local politics, and tonight is no different. This vote is not about David Warburton. What's going on? Oh, okay. This vote, is that all right? Okay. This vote is not about David Warburton's politics, but his failure to fulfil his duty as our MP. And I really hope that it is taken and held in that spirit. As councillors, we are committed to doing only what is best for our local community, for Frome. And we believe that what is best for Frome is having committed at all levels of government. So while what we are doing tonight is unusual to say the least, and will sadly not carry any actual authority, we believe that the circumstances warrant it, and it is our duty to stand up for Frome in this matter in whatever way we can. Our overriding concern is that until David Warburton appears on the front. Hello?
That's it.
Okay. Our overriding, we'll get there. Okay, our overriding concern is that until David Warburton appeared on the front cover of the Frome Times a couple of weeks ago, announcing his intention to stand as MP again, the people of Frome had not seen or heard from him in months. As far as we are aware, he did not hold a single surgery in Frome all of last year, nor attend a single public event here. We also publicly invited him to attend our council meeting last November, but he declined to do so. And it seems like his colleagues in the House of Commons haven't seen any more of him than we have. His public record shows he has not voted since the 28th of March 2022 and not spoken in Parliament since the 11th of January 2022. And in that time, many topics have been discussed and votes taken that affect the daily lives of everyone here in Frome. When I see other MPs around the country out and about, holding surgeries and engaging with their constituents, I feel genuinely sad and concerned as I'm reminded that this is something that, unlike almost every other citizen in this country, the people of Somerton and Frome are currently denied. And let's not forget that representing the concerns and interests of his constituents in the House of Commons and being present in his communities is his job, and one that he is still fully paid to do, despite not fully doing. His absence from both Frome and Parliament was prompted by a series of allegations, and an investigation into at least one of these is ongoing. But regardless of the truth of any of them, David Warburton is not fulfilling his obligations and responsibilities to the people of Frome and his wider constituency. This is not then, when it comes down to it, actually about him at all. It is about the constituents of Somerton and Frome. It is about 103,000 people. So on behalf of the 27,000 of those that live here in Frome, I'd like to ask the councillors to vote that we have no confidence in David Warburton as our MP and respectfully request that he resigns so we can have a by-election and allow Frome the better, more timely and effective representation it so deserves.
Thank you, Fiona. Can I have a proposer for accepting? Oh, sorry, the statement. We need a statement. We've got a statement to read. Paul Clark's going to read that.
So David sends his apologies tonight and has asked that this statement is read out on his behalf. So I'll read it. There's a series of bullet points that he's issued to the press yesterday. I won't list those because it's quite long, but I'll pick a few as examples. So this was a statement issued by David Warburton yesterday. I entirely understand the concern of some in Frome that I have been prevented from attending or voting in Parliament since claims were first published in the media last April and again recently. And actually since then, today, I've got an email from David Warburton saying one important thing to add, and has asked me to raise it, is that the Speaker today has granted David a proxy vote, which means that from tomorrow, that's the 23rd of February, I will be again voting in the House. Complaints are being investigated and some have concluded, but the process continues. Complaints in the Scottish Parliament take on average 36 days to be resolved. By contrast, in the recent annual report, the UK Parliament's Independent Complaints and Grievances Scheme confirmed an average of 262 days for complaints to be resolved. In my case, it has been almost a year. This, I agree, is far too long, and it's an immensely frustrating condition of the investigation process that I'm not allowed to comment in any way on the investigation until it's concluded. Together with my hardworking office team, however, I have been working for local people throughout this time, and I continue to represent them at all levels. During the past year, I have in fact dealt with well over 1,000 pieces of casework for the people of Frome alone and corresponded with them on more than 500 policy questions. I'm in continual contact with ministers, and since September, I have submitted 56 official parliamentary written questions to government on behalf of local people. Some sample of issues which which I and my team have been dealing with over the past 11 months include, for example, with no DVLA, multiple cases, delayed driving license applications, access to NHS dentistry, noise pollution, low-flying aircraft, problems with housing associations. I'll read one more from the next, street furniture, potholes, HGVs and sat-navs. That's a random selection that I didn't plan in advance, just picked them out as I went along. In terms of voting and speaking in Parliament, although this has, by mutual agreement with the House, paused for the duration of the investigation, I must emphasise the fact that neither government nor opposition whips can ever speak in the House. Ministers, parliamentary public secretaries and whips, plus opposition ministers and whips and those in the SNP, Lib Dems, etc., can never vote against their parties. So more than 250 out of 650 constituencies routinely have no dissenting voice. Conversely, I voted 18 times against the government since 2019 election. That was a rather long time. I know some MPs have been in the House for more than 20 years and I've never voted against, and who have never voted against their party. I will always exercise and follow my own mind. The Speaker of the House is currently considering the proxy vote point, which we've had an update on. And finally, my constituents rightly recognise the very real national issues before us all, and I will continue to exercise my influence in addressing them with the government. And I cannot express how urgently I look forward to the investigations concluding and to resuming the seat in the Commons, which is my privilege to occupy on your behalf.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any comments on that, Lisa?
There's a point that David makes here, Lisa Millard, councillor, Meriwether Millard, councillor, where David says, I will always exercise and follow my own mind. I wasn't aware that that's the role of an MP. I thought it was to represent their constituents. Is that the case? Can somebody confirm that for me?
I don't know. I've got printed off the job description of an MP from the UK government website, Parliament website, which, I mean, it says is to represent the UK public elects MPs to represent their interests and concerns in the House of Commons. I think, but what I really pulled out from this is, what do MPs do in their constituency? In their constituency, MPs hold a surgery in their office where local people can come along to discuss any matters that concern them. MPs also attend functions, visit schools and businesses, and generally try to meet as many people as possible. This gives MPs further insight and context into issues they may discuss when they return to Westminster.
So in response to that, are we assuming that David Warburton wouldn't be able to to speak on behalf of the people of Frome, which is why he might be exercising and following his own mind.
Seems an unusual thing to say, doesn't it? Does anyone have any technical response to that in terms of the workings of an MP? Hang on, can you take a microphone? Yeah, no, please go ahead, but you need a mic. And please, can you say who you are?
Hello, my name is Ed Dowding. For what it's worth, my understanding is that, yes, basically they are there to speak their own minds, but informed by the information that they've gathered from the people of Frome. So they're not there to essentially represent the population directly, but the aggregate plus their interpretation of it.
Thank you. Jean and then Sean. No, microphone's not on, Jean.
Jean Bolton. Yes, it's still Jean Bolton. So is that okay? Yeah. So one question is, if David Warburton has not been able to go to Parliament, I understand that there's been £250,000 in expenses the last year. So I'd be really interested to know what that was spent on if he's not been there and he's not been to Frome. And my second question was, if he's under investigation, does that mean he's unable to drop in and have the odd informal chat, even if not a surgery? There's nothing, I presume, to stop him actually being around and showing his face and showing an interest.
So on the second point, as far as I'm aware, and this is to the best of my knowledge, as he is under investigation, he cannot go into the Houses of Parliament, but I don't think there's anything that prevents him from being present in his constituency. And on the first one, yes, and the only number I have written down is that over £200,000 of his expenses was on staffing, which I think is, when he says that he has done, the 1,000 or over 1,000 piece of casework, I mean, I think he's obviously got the staff to do that.
Thank you, Sean.
To this particular point, my name's Sean Drumgoole. I've stood here twice as a Labour candidate, so I do have a little skin in the game. But I come tonight as leader of Langport Town Council. We're in the process of adopting a similar motion, almost entirely inspired by the Frome motion that we picked up and pushed through. The real power of an MP is surely to stand up in the House of Commons, point at a minister on behalf of an individual constituent or a town or an area and say, Minister, you're not doing what you've said, or you're not spending the money in the way that you said, and my constituents are not benefiting. It is that lightning rod of power that an MP has under our constitution, and that, in spite of the fact he's now been given a blue button to vote with, that he still does not have. He's not allowed into the palaces of Westminster because he's under investigation for sexual abuse. So he's not welcome there. And that is why we're not represented. That is the exact way in which we are not represented currently. And that is why I really hope and urge that you adopt this motion, and Langport is going to try and do the same.
Thank you, Sean. Mel.
I think we've already been partially successful, to be honest, if you think about it. So we've had 12 months of silence, and suddenly within 24 hours of the agenda coming out, we've got the first letter that we've had, despite getting a kiss off when we invited our Member of Parliament to come and talk to us. There's already a proxy vote being agreed within that time period. And the local media and the regional media are beginning to show more attention, and it's not just the Sunday Times. So I think we should already say, oh, this is beginning to work, and I would support the motion.
Thanks, Mel. I'm going to go to Sarah Dyke and then to Tracy Ashford.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, everybody. Sarah Dyke, parliamentary candidate for Somerton and Frome for the Liberal Democrats. Nice to see you here, Sean. There David Warburton is clearly fighting for his political life, isn't he? He's not been representing any part of Somerton and Frome for the last year and a bit. I know because I talk to people on the doorsteps and they tell me this week after week. Where is he? And this isn't just in Frome, this is right across all the towns and the villages across the constituency. Nobody has seen him. And we know we're all his constituents. We know if we're putting casework to him, it's not being acted upon. He is missing in action. And frankly, this constituency deserves far better than that. It deserves a hard-working MP, somebody who is going to advocate on behalf of their constituents. And actually, frankly, somebody who wants to do the job, who's really passionate about representing the people. So I fully endorse this motion, and thank you for bringing it forward. And I'm very pleased to see that it's going elsewhere in the constituency, and let's hope that other towns and parishes within the constituency take it up. But once again, well done, Frome, for leading the way.
Thanks, Sarah. Tracy.
Not in response to, but in agreement with what Sarah was saying, that people in Frome do feel that he's not around, that they're not getting responses to things. I was talking to a resident of my ward today who sent 4 emails since March last year, not had a response to any of them, and knows that they are reaching the correct address because they get an auto response saying there or something. So I don't know, maybe we should find out who we sent this letter to, because it obviously elicited a fantastic, immediate and very lengthy response. If somebody would like to share that, perhaps that's the way to do it. But I fully endorse this.
Thank you. And then pass on to Toby Elliott.
Good evening, everybody. Toby Elliott. We're really lucky in Frome. As a resident of Frome, I feel really lucky to be well represented. We've got a fantastically active, fully independent town council. We've got a huge range of different councillors at currently both district and county level, representing different parties and all being fairly responsive. So we are lucky, but we do miss out at the national level, and we miss out particularly in the last year or so. It's self-evident, everybody's got examples of where it's not working at the moment. Our government's formed by our ludicrous electoral system at the moment. One of the main advantages that those who support first past the post say is that an individual represents a whole constituency and everybody's represented by an individual. Well, we're not in Frome, not at the moment. And that's a disaster and it needs to change. So thank you, Town Council, for bringing this forward. I hope it goes through and it's the right thing for a Town Council to be doing. Well done.
Thank you, Toby. Anita.
Leader of Frome Town Council. I just feel it's extraordinary, really, when you think that we're about to launch into a totally different governmental system by missing out the middle tier now and going straight to having a Somerset Council, that's an area that our local MP should be very interested in and helping us with. So it seems extraordinary. You think that he would make a bigger effort at this stage to contact a lot of councils, parish and town councils within the constituency to see what help is needed with that.
Thank you. For the record, it seems that the email to which you're likely to get a response is david.warburton.mp@parliament.uk. So perhaps if anybody wants to pass that one on to their constituents and check that that's the right one, but that's the one that's elicited this response. Are there any other comments, observations before we move on to the motion? Martin.
Yeah. Just a quick, Martin Dimmery, Somerset County Councillor and PPC for the Green Party. I'd just like to follow on something that Sean said, and I think it's important that it's useful to know that Langport are intending to do this, and you need perhaps to put pressure on other towns and communities within Somerton and Frome for this, because it's fairly obvious if you look at the demographic, Frome doesn't tend to vote in the same direction as many other parts of the county. And so I think putting pressure on those as well, communities that probably traditionally vote for David Warburton,
would actually be a strong way of going about the business.
Just to say, part of the motion is that we then send this motion to all the parish and town councils in the Somerton and Frome constituency. So that is very much the idea.
Okay, yes, the gentleman in the blue waistcoat. Make sure it's got a green light on it.
We are.
Yep.
Xavier Fairclough. I was wondering if the full response that David Warburton submitted to you will be released for the public to see.
Paul?
Yeah, we can put that on our website. It's also been issued to the press, and I understand it's on David Warburton's website as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Any more comments, questions before we go on to the motion? Okay, Fiona, would you like to propose the motion? And may I second you? And all those in favour?
Can I just double check that is anyone not voting in favour? Because there's so many people in the room.
Any abstentions?
Any abstentions? So that's unanimous.
Unanimously passed. Vote of no confidence. Thank you for that, Fiona, and thank you everybody for your contributions. Okay, moving on to agenda item 3, which is questions and comments from the public and councillors. Anita, your hand has been up for this one first.
I understand that there's been a delay in issuing council allowances, as was discussed in the council meeting last month. And I understand you have a statement explaining that. So.
I do. Yeah, this is the statement I made last week, which I shall read out for clarity now. We have been contacted by the monitoring officer at Mendip and can confirm that councillor allowances are currently on hold until a new remuneration panel has been set up by the new Somerset Authority. We want to introduce the allowances as we want to see a diverse range of people representing the town, and a small expense allowance is one way to do that. It means that self-employed people can take a few hours off work to do council business without losing out so much. It means that parents of young children can afford childcare to attend evening meetings. Currently, all town councillors fulfil their roles voluntarily, often on top of full-time work, because they care about the town and its future. This very small token amount would mean that the opportunity to work for the benefit of the town is not only open to wealthy, older or retired people, and we hope to be able to introduce this once having regard to the advice of the Somerset Council Remuneration Panel once it is established. Does that answer? Thank you very much, Anita. Jill.
Thank you very much. I just sort of mention, can I mention Foundry Barton yet again?
Of course.
In that we're a little bit concerned now. Somerset Highways are aware that the walls and the steps are their problem, and it's them for them to maintain. Graham Gibson came up on Monday and had a look at there's a vertical crack in a high wall, and it is beginning to lean. And I do think the town council ought to be aware that there's a lot of bricks and walls on that Singer's site. And, you know, after, you know, a certain length of time, I think there might be some maintenance that needs to be looked at. Okay, Mark and Rob are meeting us next on March the 2nd to have a thorough check. Also, at the base of the long flight of steps, there's an area of land. Chris Stringer did know who that belonged to. It is not Somerset Highways, it's not Town Council, and it's not Mendip. And it is a scruffy piece of land which is totally neglected, and it is being used for dumping Christmas trees, etc. So that needs to be looked into because it's an absolute mess. Another item I need to draw your attention to are the new traffic lights outside Iceland. In the new digital traffic lights, guide dogs are trained to lead their partially sighted and blind people across when there's a noise. There's no noise emitted from those traffic lights when they in favor of the pedestrians crossing the road. Okay, the visual thing the visual red and green machinery is waist high and it doesn't face the onlooker from the opposite side of the road. Okay, we probably have to get used to that, but I do think there should be a signal when the lights are green for the safety of the pedestrians crossing the road.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thanks, Jill. Nick, did you want to come back on the Foundry Barton point? No? No? Okay. We've noted all those points. Thanks, Jill.
Can I just ask Rob just to have a chat with you to make sure we know where this scruffy bit of land is and see if we can bottom out who does own it? Just because there may be a disconnect between Chris Stringer leaving and Rob starting.
It's supposed Chris Stringer found that it belonged, of all places, to a firm that's based in Glasgow. Now, he managed to contact this firm who did send a gardener to come and clear it. Well, that was just a one-off, and that happened before COVID set in. And so it is a scruffy piece of land for that site in the middle of town, which, you're probably fed up with us saying it, but, it should be kept smart and kept tidy. It's in the center of town and it is being seen by so many people. And that area is a mess.
We'll take that forward, John.
As Jill alluded to, Rob and I have organised an appointment to meet Jill and her friends in Foundry Barton next week, and we'll try and address all these problems when we actually get to see them in the flesh.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Is that okay? Thank you, Jill. Thanks, Mark. Nick.
Thanks. Good evening. Nick Dove, Town Councillor. Jill, thank you very much for that. It's really interesting. The traffic lights, which I assume have been put in by Somerset Highways, are insensitive to the needs of people who are blind or partially sighted. One of the reasons we were given for the two crossing points from the Boyle Cross was it would be unsafe for people who are partially blind or blind to cross there because they couldn't attract the attention of motorists to get them to stop. So it's a bit of a disconnect between the two policies, and it seems to be odd and wrong, frankly. My other point was one of the strands that we are promoting in our new strategy as a council is the town centre and trying to make it more beautiful. Despite the best efforts of Rob, our environment manager, and ward councillors, we've met with Mendip District Council officers and their contractors ID Verdi to do with the state of the town centre streets and bins and so on. Despite them employing a street cleaner for the town centre, who has turned up, and when he was here he was brilliant, but he obviously has to have time off and time away, and there seems to be no system by which they replace an absent street cleaner. In the last week and a half, I, like many of my colleagues, spent a lot of time in the town centre. It is disgusting. It is filthy. There is vomit down church steps. Has been there over a week. There are piles of rubbish. The new planters and steps on the Boyle Cross are littered with underneath with cigarette ends and other detritus. It's appalling. And I would ask that we write formally to Mendip and ask them what do they do when the street cleaner's on leave or sick? What is their response, and why are they not doing something about it?
Agreed. Rob, did you want to come back?
I just reply. It is an issue getting clarity on exactly what the next steps are. We have asked a number of times for feedback from them, and the time they take to reply can be quite long. The last reply we had about the cleansing operative, or barrowman as was called, was that he is off but is replaced by someone else. Whether that is actually happening on the ground or not clearly is a moot point. That was the latest reply that we've had. So far we've contacted both ID Verdi and Mendip Council through their neighbourhood services. So we've had replies from both routes. Yeah, it's hard to get more focus, I suppose, partly to do with what's happening with Mendip District Council right at the moment. The contract is up for renewal for the whole of the town centre with ID Verdi. The contract's up for renewal in November. Obviously, by then the unitary authority will be established. That is potentially an opportunity to relook at the whole way that the town centre cleanliness is managed in terms of the contract with the contractor. So certainly scope for discussing that further down the road. In terms of raising the profile right now, well, that's a interesting question to maybe discuss further.
Did you want to come back on that?
Yeah,
and then I'm coming to Mel and then to
yeah, could. Thanks very much, Rob. I know you've been doing your best and it's very tricky. One of my bugbears is you try and contact the district and county council and you send in an email and there's not even acknowledgement of an email, so you've no idea if anyone's read it. You can get an acknowledgement or a response quite often. And I also think it goes towards how we should be thinking as a town, which is about employing directly people who deliver essential services. If you look at decades of outsourcing, I remember watching NHS cleaning staff, contractors, basically standing on a Hoover while they went around a ward listening to us or watching something on their phone. They don't do the job properly. And it's the sort of thing with a circular economy, I think it'd be far better if we looked at employing people directly to do the essential services for the town centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Mel.
I know I'm seen as a prophet of doom now and again. This is going to get worse. We're now January, Mendip go out of existence, April, May. It isn't going to get any better unless we keep the pressure on. And then, of course, the responsibility moves to Taunton. And no matter how good the unitary authority is, and they're facing a lot of problems in terms of their finances, I think the state of Frome Town Centre is not going to be high on their list, and it'll be up to local councillors to keep the pressure on. But I think we need to devise a system that actually allows us to keep a watch and monitor what's going on. We did have something some years ago called Mendip Watch, which was reported to every council meeting because things got so bad. And then they did improve, I'll give them their credit, and so did ID Verdi. But this is going to start slipping. There's absolutely no doubt about it. If you think about organisations, this is how they work. And it's, and if they're far away and they haven't got the kind of direct monitoring of what they're doing, then they're bound to let things just go through. So somehow or other we need to think about this, because if we can't keep the town centre clean, then what can we do as a local government? It seems to me that should be the simplest thing. And how can the unitary authority be allowed to trust people, looking after children, if we can't get the town centres right?
Thank you, Mel. And then we have a question on the message board, do we?
We've got Adam on.
Adam Boyden. Go ahead, Adam. Hello, Adam.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hello,
You
is
sound a
anyone
bit
there?
like you're underwater, but go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you, Adam. Can you hear us?
I can't see how I can do that.
Adam, are you on mute?
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Adam, you've got us muted.
No.
He won't hear that, will he?
Oh dear. This computer's not letting me.
Can you message him and
hear
say we'll
what
come
you're
back to him?
saying. I can't
Someone
hear
message him
you.
and tell him he's got us muted. Okay. There, Adam, can you hear us yet? We've muted him. Okay. Are there any other questions while we wait to see if Adam's coming back? What? Adam, can you hear me? Adam! And then there's a question from the gentleman at the back there. Could you just take the microphone, please?
My name's Kevin Kelly, yes.
Hello, Kevin.
I've been studying the water supply for the last 20 years. You know, what's in it exactly? What's poisoning people?
Is that a comment or a question? Would anybody like to
Have
answer?
I muted the room?
Martin.
I think I can directly answer that question, except to say that we're expecting Wessex Water, I know some of us in Southern Water here, but Bristol Water, to attend a county council meeting of the environment scrutiny at some time in the future, where we hope to hold their feet to the fire. But it's not our responsibility specifically, but we need to put pressure on them. Can't answer that and wouldn't agree with it.
I don't think that's a question for this forum, but thank you for your initial question, Kevin. I hope Martin's response was useful. Adam, are you there? No. Okay. All right. Next time then, Adam. Any other questions or comments, Martin?
I want to comment about, do you want an update on council matters from ward councillors?
Do we? Yeah.
I saw it's on the agenda. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, I won't be long. It's the last meeting I came to, I informed you about the plans for planning. I'm pleased to say that Helen Kay, one of our Frome councillors, is on constitution, and she was hectoring quite effectively for them to change the strategy for planning, so that planning decisions will be made even on estates and developments of over 10 houses at the new Somerset East Planning Board. So that's a real improvement. And also, they were able to agree today that planning applications should consult neighbours, because that was going to be cut from the planning procedures. So that's it. That's all I can. I think those most important things to update you on. The budget went through today after something approaching 6 hours. Not entirely, but a 6-hour meeting. There's about £500 million now in the budgets for this council. And I would just finish by saying, yes, by all means, Frome Town Council or the local community network, take over the cleaning.
Great, thank you for that. Do you have anything, Dawn? Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick update on Berkeley School. I've been working with David Warburton's office, so that's one of the 1,000 things I suppose he's been working on, to restart the conversation that's been stalled in the moving of the Berkeley School onto Edmund Park. We're stuck in a bit of a situation at the moment because the landowner is in a care home in Frome, and the people looking after his estate aren't very engaged in the process either. Unfortunately, when he dies, the land will go to Eton College, and we can't get hold of them either at the moment. So we've got there's 3 options. The first option is that we do get that land when the lease renews in 2025-26, and then the school can stay there if they allow them to, and give them extra land, but it's going to cost money to build a school, proper school. The second option is to move to Edmund Park, where again, there's a lot of money needed to build the school. And the plan is then to have a community centre as part of the school, which the whole of Frome can use. And then the third option, which is not an option that they really even want to contemplate, is putting the kids in other schools in Frome. We know that there are spaces in classes in Frome. The school numbers are going down, but that would just feel, I suppose, inhuman and breaking up a community. There's about 97, I think, children at the school. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. If anyone has any more information on that one, please get in touch. Oh, it sounds like a radio show. And just let me know if there's anything else I can do in that aspect. But as soon as we know about the land and what we can do with that, I'll send you an update.
Thank you, Dawn. Okay, before we move on to the next agenda item then, that's great. Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning, agenda item 4 has been removed. We're going to Sarah Williams to approve Frome Town Council's financial position at the end of January 2023. Sarah, are you there?
Yes, hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not there in person, or neither Hannah, to present the report. It's fairly brief this time. We can report in more detail in March, and also the end of year will be presented in May. Does anybody have any questions on the report circulated?
Fiona.
Oh, I'm really sorry to ask this, but we are still using Barclays Bank, and thanks to a leaflet handed out to me by XR, who are doing protest outside, I know that Barclays are Europe's biggest funder of fossil fuels, and in 2021, they made 8.4 billion in profit through their dirty investments. To me, this feels like this directly contradicts the values and aims of this council. We have the climate ecological emergency as one of our main strategic aims. And I do understand that there are probably reasons for this, but I would like to know on the record what they are and if there is any way we can move away from them.
Thank you, Fiona. Sarah?
Yes, we are working towards doing tests with Triodos and Unity Trust Bank on bulk payments. That was the key thing that was holding us moving away from Barclays.
Thank you. Rachel?
Max has a question.
Max, hello.
Hi, everyone. Apologies that I can't be there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask a question about the format of the report. So the report gives a lot of just kind of figures, really, and I kind of don't really know whether those are good or bad. There's a statement that says later on in the report, which talks about the variance between what was kind of expected and what is actually happening, and I would suggest that that's probably more what we need to look at, kind of what's on track and what's off track. Just giving a lot of figures doesn't feel very informative to me.
Sure, thanks, Max. Point taken, and we'll change the report for next meeting and see how that looks.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Fiona again.
Yeah, so I had another point similar to Max's in that I feel like the level of assumed knowledge needed in order to understand these reports is quite high, and particularly for new councillors and councillors who, like myself, don't come from particularly sort of corporate backgrounds or who are used to looking at this massive figures. I really did try, and it took me quite a while to understand what I was looking at and to think of what I can, what do I need to look at? So my point was actually going to be, is there training or that could be offered to councillors so that we can understand it more? Or as Max says, is there a way in which it could be presented so that we can more quickly get a grasp of what it is that we're looking at?
Sure. Okay. So for the next meeting, how about if we do a variance report, and also the Monday night before the meeting, I could do a 5 o'clock session, a Zoom in for people who want to just call in and discuss the report that's gone out and ask questions that they might think would take up too much time in public or that they don't want to show that they don't know about in public. So a bit of education before the meeting, and then you can ask what you like on the night.
Does that sound okay, Fiona?
That's great. Thank you, voice of Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. Max, are you happy with Sarah's answer?
Very happy. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Great. Sarah, anything else to add?
No, thanks.
So then I need somebody to propose that we approve the finances. Anne, seconded by Nick, and all those happy to approve?
It's majority.
Tracy's abstaining.
It's majority.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Sarah. On to agenda item 6. This is over to you now, Tracy. This is a decision on whether to support the use of S106 money for play equipment.
Slightly panicked, trying to find out where Rob is because I haven't done this before. So, under consideration today is a request by MDC to use some S106 funds to pay for play equipment for use in refreshing and updating two somewhat neglected Mendip play parks in Frome, Hawksworth Close and Blackbird Way. Frome Town Council has over a number of years developed its own play strategy, which inclusivity and accessibility are of prime importance. And in addition to the play strategy, the officers and the councillors have participated in engagement activities with the community, and they found there to be a pressing need, in fact, for a more communal social space, play space, specifically at Brunel Way. The play equipment for the MDC proposal has already been purchased by MDC. And it's the view of the Frome Town Council officers that this play equipment does not fit the play strategy. It doesn't address the, specifically, it doesn't address the access or the inclusivity needs. However, following what really was, a very productive and quite open meeting with FTC and MDC, the ward, college ward councillors, so that's myself, Andy Jones and Sarah, our view was that on balance, it is better to support the project because it is already underway. We think it would be wasteful to allow the equipment to sit in storage because we can't, they can't get their money back on that equipment and it's ready to go. And we consider it in the best interests of children local to these two small play areas. With the spring upon us, summer on its way, and possible plans for any new communal space at Brunel Way, they're unstarted and likely to take years. So local children can have immediate access to enjoy the new replacement equipment. Whilst it doesn't meet the FTC play strategy, there is merit in refreshing tired existing play spaces. And for anyone who's involved with, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds or remembers living in the moment in that way, you will, of course, remember that a swing in the hand is always worth 2 roundabouts in the bush. So the meeting, it did conclude with all councillors and all officers of each council in agreement that in future, it would be very beneficial to communicate and update each other much more. So more cross communication about our work, about our plans to avoid a similar situation. They weren't aware of our play strategy, but the tone of the meeting was very much towards a positive intention to communicate more our own plans, feedback to each other, and also the feedback of our shared community with an aim for better collaboration in future on such an enjoyable area of work.
Thank you, Tracy. Am I right in thinking that the equipment, I will come to you, I'm putting my own hand up and asking myself, am I right in thinking that the equipment is movable once it's been put in situ, so it doesn't have to stay in the location that it's placed?
It doesn't have to stay there always, yeah, and it doesn't take up all of the space. More equipment can be added.
Thank you. Lisa, yours popped up first, then Nick.
Thank you very much. I don't know if this is directed at Tracy or Rob, but did we see an equalities impact assessment on this at all to see how it would impact the wider community?
No, that part of the discussion was that when it was first brought to our attention that this was the plan, we didn't have any context. It was later clarified. Adam will chip in if he can at this point, but there were comments requesting it from requesting a refresh of the play area that had been sent, I think, to Adam himself or to the consultation that happened at the time when it was being explored whether land from MDC could come to FTC. There were comments requesting a refresh of the play area, but I'm not aware of any in-depth study as to the impact of the play equipment. The reason for the meeting was partly to do with the fact that we've done a lot of work identifying what is the right principles to be employed when we're refreshing play equipment. And as Tracy's already said, we didn't feel this met with those principles. So that was the purpose of the meeting, actually, was to look at the justification or the principles behind the refresh. However, we are where we are, and so the proposal is to do the refresh on the basis that the project is teed up and ready to go ahead, maybe not on the basis that it's a good fit with our play strategy.
Just want to say that I agree, but it feels like we've been backed into a corner to take play equipment which we don't know is fit for purpose. I mean, is there equipment there for disabled children?
Can I just ask Laura, maybe if we could have the next couple of slides, you'll actually get to see what's going in at the two places.
I mean, there was an element of feeling slightly backed into a corner, and that was aired openly in the meeting as well.
So that there's two play areas and there's two pieces of equipment going into both play areas. So in Blackbird Way, which is the site which is quite close to the show field, those are the two pieces of play equipment that are proposed.
They're quite traditional.
So for children
like
who
that
are
20 odd years.
disabled, who may be in wheelchairs, is there anything that they can use at this?
No, if we look at the next slide for Hawksworth Close, the roundabout there has the potential to be more inclusive, but to address your point, that is why one of the principal reasons we wanted to have the meeting. So
And that's
there are issues.
why it doesn't fit our strategy.
Yeah, I just want to say again that it's disappointing.
It is disappointing, and that's what we were discussing really, and measure that disappointment with the disappointment of children who will have, could have some play equipment right on their doorstep right now.
Nick, Fiona, then Mel, and then the gentleman at the back.
Do we know the value of the equipment that was purchased by Mendip?
Yes, we do.
The value, sorry, the
do.
value, yes, £46,000.
Including the installation.
No, that's not including the installation. That's just the purchase. And that comes from 3 Section 106 agreements.
Okay, thanks. I mean, my point is that's a significant chunk of money. It feels very strange and very wrong that an authority should allocate funds to a scheme without consulting with the local authority, a local council, local people, local councillors about its value, its use. Is it consistent with what we're doing? It's similar to what happened with the bike stands. I don't know if you remember that. They kind of said, we're going to survey and ask where we should have more bike stands. Everyone agrees we need more bike stands, but then Mendip came back and said, this is where they're going, and this is the colour they'll be, and this is the design. And it didn't match what we wanted. It didn't match with the colour scheme of the town centre street furniture. And we did ask through Nikki and Emma, our resilience officers, if perhaps the money they'd allocated to spend on that could maybe come to us and we could choose how we could spend it locally. I don't think we have got a response to that. But again, it's one of those things. And I hope that Martin and Dawn and Adam, who are on there in the new setup, that there will be much more consideration over what is consistent with local needs rather than just imposing stuff at the taxpayers. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Just
Tracy
respond
just
to
wants
that.
to respond to that. Yeah.
I did directly ask that, basically, can you cancel the order? Can you send it back? Can you spend the money on something else? And it was categorically no. It was beyond that point. Not in just that was factually the case. I received, before I set out this evening, an email from Gemma Bousted, who lives close by with small children, enthusiastically backing this idea as a parent with small children, and also because part of going to a micro play area close to your home is learning to become independent as a child rather than being driven to Welsh Mill or walked for 20 minutes to the back of the hospital playing there. She was wholeheartedly backing it, and I understand that she understood the complexity and the implications of Brunel Way and referenced them. I think she's a town planner by profession, actually. So I have evidence of one person. 100% of people who've contacted me have backed it.
Thank you, Fiona.
Picking up on Lisa's very well made point, and there's a couple of things. Let's have another look at the play strategy for this meeting, and it's an incredible piece of work. There is so much that's gone into it, so much thought and consideration and consultation. And I was sort of reading it, and it's just such a shame that there's this work that obviously, I'm presuming it cost money in order to have it commissioned, and then we get an opportunity to have play equipment that's 46,000 and the two haven't matched up, and it just seems like such a waste of money. And picking up on Lisa's point about the Equality Act, is my understanding of that is that is something optional for us to agree to, but is this going to leave us open in any way to sort of, is it optional for us? Are we sort of losing is there any implication for us if we essentially are putting equipment out that wouldn't meet those standards?
Yeah.
It depends on whether we ever in future take on those two open spaces. At the moment, we have nothing to do with it technically. The open space doesn't belong to the town council, and the play equipment won't belong to the town council until and if it becomes. Then it's a moot point about what would happen then. would be pretty hard to retrospectively do that, I think. But you do in future, and as per our play strategy, anything we want to do would be right and proper, if you like.
Yeah, it would meet the play strategy aims and goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
And would be the areas that we've talked about, such as Blackbird Way, and there's also back of the Showfields and our Frome Town Council.
Yeah, where the next agenda item is picking that point up, actually.
We'll come back to that. Mel, and then Kevin, and then Polly.
Okay, we do talk a lot of abbreviations here, don't we? Section 106, for those people who are not aware of it, is actually money deposited by developers when they get planning permission to build new estates. And it's time limited, so it has to be spent within a certain period, and that varies. And there is some flexibility in it in terms of where it can be used, but generally its use and its location is identified in as much detail as possible. But actually, this is a really serious point in that it's a classic example of what we put up with for the last decade. And I know we're supposed to be nice to mend it nowadays, but it's kind of, they shouldn't be doing this. And I would hope that the future unitary councillors who are here actually take a lesson. It's a kind of pointless exercise for a larger council who's got a lot of responsibilities, and that's going to get much greater responsibilities in the future, to be thinking that they know what should go on some small piece of green grass somewhere in Frome, which is one of hundreds of communities in Somerset. So they really need to say, you can have these pieces of land, do something with them, don't sell them to anybody else. And if you do, we want to share the profit, but you use them for what you need. And also, we intend to give all of the section 106 monies that come into Frome in the future for you to decide as a responsible town council with good experienced people and strategies which you should have agreed in terms of the unitary. So I don't think we should lose this point. It's very important because it can amount to a lot of money. And if you think what might happen over Selwood Garden community and the possibility that the town council will own a lot of land there, then this could be considerable amounts of money. So we just need to bear that in mind.
Thanks, Mel. Rob's coming back on that, I think.
Yeah, just to say that the use of the Section 106 money, the clarity on when they have arrived, for which purposes they are to be used, by when they have to be spent, how much has been spent already, and what are the new pots about to arrive. That information was flagged at the meeting as being something that we wanted, just as you've said there, Mel. And I think there was, Heather Shearer was at the meeting, and there was a clear consensus, I think, from everyone in the room that greater clarity on this point was needed. I think there was an acknowledgement that there wasn't clarity at the moment. And so that was flagged, and there's action taken to investigate that further.
Thank you, Kevin. And then Mark.
What facilities is he?
In what regard do you mean?
Well, the money what's been invested in this Frome, this so-called city, innit? Where does it come from?
Rob, do you want to take that question?
I think the question, Kevin, is where does this funding come from for these facilities? And it comes, as Mel said, from developers who contribute to sort of improvements of amenity within the area. Is that the question? Is that the answer to? Did I answer the wrong question? I don't know.
Holly and then Mark.
I think it's really good that we're raising this point and highlighting the fact that we do have a strategy that includes everybody in play, and but because I find it really annoying whether or not we're talking about good communication between different levels of local authority.
Sorry, Polly.
Whether we're talking about good communication between different levels of local authority, local government, whether we're talking about is it a legal requirement under the Equality Act? We're not living in the 1970s. We don't put witches' hats up in the play areas anymore. We're living in an age of inclusivity, and it shouldn't be for a smaller council to demonstrate to a larger council what that means, what inclusivity means. And it means it's for everybody. And I just find it frustrating when large companies and authorities wait for it to be put into place legally before they'll take action to include everybody. So I think this is a really good debate tonight.
Thank you, Polly. And Mark, did you have something you wanted to say on that one as well?
Yeah, I do. Looking at the two sites, I get Hawksworth Close, and I appreciate the inclusive equipment being used there. And I think Gemma, in the email to which Tracy referred, said she would really appreciate some kids' stuff being put into Hawksworth Close. So I would agree with that. Or if we can go back to the picture of Blackbird Way, you can just about see the existing kit up by those trees and those houses, the red blobs in the distance. So anybody who's going to have to walk up there, if they don't put a path in, it's going to be very muddy. It's going to be the non-inclusive equipment to be installed up there. And my knowledge of the area means that Blackwood Way is quite a few old people living around there, more than young people living around there. And I'll defer to those who have Stonebridge as their ward. So as a compromise, could we pay for Hawksworth and not Blackbird?
What was that one for you?
So, Mark, are you proposing an amendment to the recommendation there?
Be to propose an amendment that we pay for Hawksworth, but not Blackbird, because it doesn't fit in with our play strategy or including inclusive equipment, and it's probably a less suitable site. So we can satisfy our needs by Hawksworth Close and not Blackbird Way. So my amendment suggested, if we want an amendment, would be yes to Hawksworth, no to Blackbird.
So what Mark is doing there is proposing an amendment to the existing recommendation by removing Blackbird Way and from that recommendation. So what you would need to do is vote on that recommendation, okay, and then continue the debate after that.
All right, so first of all, then, Adam, did you want to talk on this subject first? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm District Councillor and County Councillor for the ward of College Ward, which is just outside where Hawksworth Close is. And a couple of years ago, I think I took soundings from the local community after somebody contacted me to say, Hawksworth Close is run down. There's nowhere for our young children to play. Please, can you see what you can do? So I did contact Mendip and then put something out online to let the residents I know. They put it on Facebook. I got 25 responses back saying basically, yes, please can we improve Hawksworth Close play area for the young children we have who have nowhere to play within walking distance. So people within walking distance in Stonebridge don't have anywhere for their young children to play apart from that run down spot, and also the run down spot at Blackbird Way with the rockers. So if, as I understand it, well, we had a meeting a few weeks ago about this, and it was generally agreed in the room with the town councillors as well as Heather and the district council officers that the mistakes have been made on this, and Mel pointed that out today about consultation with each other, and particularly Mendip officers consulting with town council about what's best for the town, and not just looking at the spaces that council owns or this council owns in isolation. So there's definitely, we're going to try and make sure this doesn't happen again. With the new council, there's no baggage really. So hopefully we'll see the way forward is a more engaging process of agreeing where the Section 106 money can best be spent in the place that it's being spent, rather than just concentrating on Mendip's own sites in the future, or Somerset's own sites. But at the moment, we have basically a question. Will you approve the spending of Section 106 money at no cost to the town council, at no effort to the town council, to allow people in Stonebridge to have 2 sites or 1 site at least where the young children can play. It's no cost to this council. It's a cost to the developers. And if that money is not agreed tonight, that money will be put away again. That equipment will be put away in storage and it will not be used in Frome. So I'd at least like you to use it to say yes to Hawksworth Close, because I've got good evidence that a lot of people there want that equipment in. They want to play opportunities, and then they want to talk about Brunel Way. What can you do there? Which will take time because of ownerships, new councils, ways of working, etc., etc. But at least Hawksworth Close. So Blackbird Way, yes, there's older people living there. They've probably been there 30, 40 years. And their children have grown up and moved away, and they've got grandchildren visiting largely. That's from my local knowledge. But if you have a playground in a park, it attracts families. We've seen it at Patsaddle Way. An older couple moved out, a younger family moved in that think that park is their back garden. So it could attract younger families to that area, and it could be a more attractive thing to have in Frome at no cost to this council. So I'd be very happy if you approved the funding for Blackbird Way as well.
And breathe.
Thank you.
Got a proposal on the table that we're going to consider in a second, but Tracy has a question for Mark, I think, first.
Well, I just wondered where your evidence was about older people, and without putting too fine a point on it, you know, there's an end to old age at some point and houses become empty again. You know, I don't, for me, it doesn't hold a great deal of weight as an argument for the reasons that Adam just said, actually.
Just as Adam said, it's it has people who have his knowledge of the area says it's families who've had children who've grown up and moved away. So now we're talking about older people living there with grandchildren visiting. I'm ambivalent about this. I'm joining Mel and others, a bit annoyed that it's been done to us rather than with us. And I think most councillors in the town will be fed up with that. So it was a way of making.
As were we to discover that.
I know you were. You were a bit ambushed. I mean, I'm happy to give way on the amendment if it makes people happy, but I thought this was a way of compromising and sending a little bit of a message saying we're not entirely happy with this.
Thank you. Anita and then Fiona.
Sarah, I'm very concerned if we do make that amendment, it would be potentially at the loss of the equipment and the S106 money that we would have any control over. And much as I'm really quite cross about the way that Mendip have dealt with this, but it sounds as though there's an opportunity for all of us to learn lessons about more cooperation. But I do think in this instance, we'd be better off accepting this and just taking it on the chin and making sure that in future we can collaborate a lot better.
Fiona.
Nita, I mean, I think everyone knows I will not be voting for this with any sort of relish. I mean, it's anti-inclusivity, which is, to me, is going to feel horrible. But while I understand your point about making a point, I think we can't do that at the expense of children being able to play. And I just wanted to I pulled up the email that Tracy mentioned that's from Jem Borstead, because I couldn't remember which one she was talking about, but she was talking about Hawksworth Close. And she said, I know in the statement there was the opinion that the majority of the children on this estate are older. However, this is not the case. I myself have 2 young children being aged 1 and 6 and know many, many other young children, 10 under the age of 7, just in Stirling Way, a small cul-de-sac, and many on the Stonebridge estate, many of which attend Hayesdown School, which only goes up to year 4. So that's about Hawks. She's talking about installing play equipment on Hawksworth Close. So, I mean, I don't know the area, and that's one person I'm aware there's not, but to me that feels like there are young people around, and
okay,
I don't like
I think we probably need to stop going around in circles and decide whether or not you want to make that amendment to the.
In view of what's going.
Sorry, Kevin, did you want to say something?
In view of what's going around the room, I'm happy to withdraw the amendment. It was a bit of a protest.
Okay, so we're going to go with the original recommendation. So we're going to vote on a decision whether to support the use of S106 budgets for play equipment at Blackbird Way and Hawksworth Close. I think we've acknowledged, and it'll be minuted, that we're all doing this reluctantly. But can somebody propose that acceptance? Nick Dove, seconded by Philip. All those in favour? To support it, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I've minuted that. Can we all just show you?
Can I just check? Actually, those that aren't in favour, hold your thing out just so I can make sure I'm not missing anyone who may be abstaining or right. That's unanimous.
Reluctantly unanimous. Thank you. Well, we've got a similar issue for decision now, which is actually this is for minuting. This is the use Fest 106 money for play area refresh at the old Showfield, and this is Rob and Mark, I think, as well.
Thank you. Rob Holden, Environment Manager. This is to give you a briefing about a proposed project to refresh the Showfield play area, as well as letting you know about the project. The aim of the briefing today is so that if it's approved, it allows us to go to Mendip District Council along the lines of what we've just been talking about to request access to Section 106 funds. So this is really the very start of the journey. I'll give you a little bit of background about the project, but just to say the community's already been involved in giving us their thoughts about what could go in place of what we've got there already. And the community will be actively consulted as we go forwards. And underpinning everything will be the play strategy that we've been talking about. So it will have inclusivity at its very heart right from the get-go. In fact, Critchell School have already been out to look at the gates to see can people who are less mobile get into the site already. And so I just want to reassure everyone about the sort of the spirit of how it's going to go forwards. So it's the play area in the Showfield. It's the largest play area in the town. And over time, the equipment there has gradually degraded and had to be retired, partly due to the fact that water, which is drained from both Selwood Academy and the Collegians football field, drains to the sort of naturally bowl that occurs at the bottom of the play area. So the water pools, there's been wooden equipment that's gone in, and over time it's rotted. Most of the play equipment has sadly already been retired now, and the zip wire was retired just a couple of weeks ago after our quarterly play inspection reports. So yeah, there's very little left to play. There's a slide, and there's not much else, to be honest. So we would dearly like to begin or carry on with the journey of refreshing it. We think step number one has got to be sorting out the drainage, because there is so much water pooling at the bottom there. So it's quite there's a degree of complexity to the project, because first of all, it's undertaking land works to improve the drainage. And secondly, it's to do a refresh of the play equipment. So in total, we would like to access the Section 106, the Garston Road Section 106 funds, which are specifically for use on Frome Town Council lands for play equipment. Specifically for that, there's 178,000 left in that pot, and we would like to request all of it so that we can do the drainage and do the play area refresh.
Kevin, you had your hand up first. Did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we haven't got as far as identify. So far, we haven't sourced any materials in terms of the new. Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point, actually, and we don't want to do that next time round. We want to make sure. Well,
can we just if you're going, because we are being. We do. So if you're going to. Fine, thank you. That's fine. Thanks, Lisa.
I feel like I've forgotten my point. Oh yes, Garston Road. That was an area that was supposed to hold a play park. And I think I remember having spoken to you, Paul, many years ago, about 10 years ago, about the use of that site. For the people in that community, is there anything planned for that? Because I know that it was planned to be on that site. You're now recommending that the money get used to not have play equipment on that site. Is there any plans?
No, this money is specifically not for that field. As you and I well remember, Lisa, we went through quite an exciting engagement activity with from college students and students from our twin towns, I think, at the time. What happened was, unbeknownst to us, by the end of the process, there was a big attenuation tank sunk into that field, and no play equipment can be permanently secured on that field as a result. So that was why the Section 106 agreement was allocated to off-sites that include the show field.
I feel like it's the only thing I'm saying this meeting, but I'd like to go on record to say that it's disappointing that play equipment won't be put onto that site. And was it the developers who had put that in?
The developers had to put it in, and it's Wessex Water, I think, that have insisted that there were no permanent structures allowed on top of it because they need to access it at immediate notice.
I would like to go on record to say that I'm very disappointed in Wessex Water or whoever is preventing there being play equipment on there. And I think that the residents of that area are missing out, and I can catch your eye. And yeah, you have children in that area. I have children in that area. Many of my constituents have children in that area. So just on record to say it's disappointing.
It's called a what? Attenuation tank.
Yeah.
Anita, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Rob. Interesting about the 178K from that S106. I'm just wondering, I know it must be very difficult at this stage to evaluate the cost of drainage and play equipment, well, depending on what materials are used and all sorts. Is it the plan to actually make sure that we hit that ceiling to use it all? Or the other questions are, if what we want to do goes over that sum, where will we get the rest from? Or alternatively, if we don't spend it all, is there a plan to utilise the rest of that money on other Frome-owned green spaces with other play equipment?
Thanks, Anita. The initial works that we've done to estimate the costs suggest that the land works, the drainage works just by themselves is likely to be in the high tens of thousands. In fact, I'm going on site tomorrow to have a second quote. So that is likely to be a very, very high cost, undoubtedly. And the thought has always been that to do justice to a refresh, it would need about £100,000 just for the play. So £100,000. I mean, to put that in context, some we've seen two pieces of equipment costing £23,000. So yeah, we hope to be quite creative with what we produce rather than taking off the peg options like we were seeing earlier, but nonetheless there'll be a significant cost. So it will very likely use up a lot of that money, but if it doesn't, and I hope to find a different price from the contractor tomorrow, any money that we don't use will stay in that Section 106. It is not, as I understand it, it is got to be used by December 2025. So if it wasn't used for this, we would still have time to use it for something else. So it wouldn't be lost, and it is ring fenced for either Rodden Meadow, the Showfield, New Road, Mary Bailey, or the Riverbank. So we can use it in other places. If it goes over 178,000, I will be doing my level best to make sure it doesn't, because that's already a lot of money. So I'll update you as I go.
Was there a hand up over there? Yes. Kevin, I've got you. I'll come back to you when
Thanks.
it's your turn.
Ed Dowding again. This may not be the best time to mention this, but or think about this, but an idea I've heard discussed recently by some new parent friends of mine is having adult exercise equipment next to playgrounds. You could make arguments in both directions, but just throwing it into the mix anyway.
There is actually at that site there is outdoor gym equipment right next to it. So yep. Adam. Sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob. I support any investment in the old show, but of course it's in my ward, so I would. But I know it's very important for pupils of at least 2 schools who go past there on the way home, older children or younger teenagers. Very popular, and when something breaks, it matters, and they don't use it as much. So anything you can improve on there, it's important. Also, it's important that it's his town council's land, and no other council needs to approve it, right? So I'm glad we got it moved from Mendip and the Show Society to Town Council those years ago, Mel. Remember that? Also, you mentioned Mary Bailey. Does that include the skate park? Because having a skater son, he's gone away to uni now, but is that another can of worms perhaps? But is there potential to improve that at some point? I know there's a campaign on that from older teenagers, girls and boys, to improve the skate park. Could any of that be put towards that perhaps?
Thank you. That's a very important subject, and the skate park in Mary Bailey is very tired. Something needs to happen to create, at least maintain the existing, and ideally much improve the provision. There's a fantastic initiative by some local people, which you're probably well aware of, to look at doing something for it. They've done a great job at both raising the profile and raising funds to move that forwards. That is something that we are very conscious of. We're actively exploring options. I think it's quite an involved topic about what is the best location for that. So maybe, well, I don't know if that's for now, but I'm very happy to continue those discussions after this.
Okay, a couple more quick points before we move to vote. Fiona and then Kevin.
Yeah, just to say, I was really pleased you said creative things. I think, as Adam said, this is our land. It's a significant pot of money. We've got the play strategy. Like, let's do something really, really exciting with it. Like, I would love it if we could do something that's really inclusive, really different for children and adults of all ages. That just looks at play differently, and we've done the work now on the play strategy. To me, this is just actually an opportunity to really go for it, and I would really love it if we could be really bold and brave and do something like, let's make it like the best play park in the country.
Thank you, Fiona.
Not really that much.
And Kevin, if you could keep it brief, please. I want to move on swiftly. There's a microphone there for you.
Who is supplying us with the electricity?
I'm sorry.
Electricity and gas.
Well, there's a number of providers, aren't there, and everyone makes their own choice.
SSE is the only choice you get, isn't it?
Don't believe it is, no. I don't think that's really a particular question for this subject.
Don't need more nuclear power stations.
Kevin, that's not the subject in hand right now. We're talking about a play area. Have you got anything to ask about the particular question we're discussing? Okay, then we will move to vote on this. And the recommendation is to note that the work at the old show field is needed and request that MDC release 178,000 from the Garston Road 106 agreement to pay for it. Anita is proposing, Tracy is seconding, and everyone who's in favour. Unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Rob. And finally, another for decision, which is an update to the volunteer policy. And for this, I'm handing over to Paul.
Councillors know that we regularly bring a chapter or two to council of the constitution to review. I've made some minor changes just in line with best practice to the current volunteer policy. using sort of the model ones that NALC and the SLCC are publishing, and I looked around other councils as well and just sort of picked and made sure our one was as good as it gets. It'll need reviewing over time again, as particularly our safeguarding policies come into line, and we're a much more complex councillor. But really, this is just proposal to update the volunteer policy to make sure that the one on the Constitution is up to date.
Thank you. Do we have a recommendation that we can put on screen?
It is to approve Chapter 22 of the volunteer policy.
Anita to propose, Lisa seconding.
It's unanimous. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And herein endeth the meeting. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions. Next meeting is on the 15th of March.